This is a Nintendo Switch 2. I've been obsessively testing it since release day. The new Joy-Cons, the bigger screen, even the mouse support. I have been attached to this thing since I've gotten it during all times of day. And now I can tell you what Nintendo got right, what I particularly don't like, and one reason why I think that maybe you should wait to buy one. But let's start talking about the hardware. The first thing you will notice when you pick it up, especially if you come from the original Switch, is how much bigger the screen is. I mean, the comparison is not even fair. This makes a huge difference when you play in handheld mode, and since a lot of Switch users do play that way, this just one new feature is good enough to justify buying the new console. Now, I have to say that the panel itself is no OLED. We'll probably see a new version with it in the future, so you don't really get the really deep blacks, but from what I've actually tested so far, I still really like it thanks to how big and bright it is. This is a huge change for the better. But size and brightness are not the only cool things about it though. It also allows you to play at 120 FPS. And what this means is that things will look smoother and more fluid. It feels as if you're getting more of each of the animations. Sadly, I'm recording this video at 30 FPS, so you are not gonna see the difference right now, but if you are able to actually play this console in real life, you'll probably see what I mean. As long as you play Nintendo-made titles, since not many third-party ones are able to achieve the same frame rate. Having said that, this is a change that to me doesn't really make a huge amount of a difference. Don't get me wrong, I still think it's amazing, and I'm sure that a lot of people are gonna really enjoy this, but to me 60 FPS is probably going to be enough, and it doesn't have some of the drawbacks that I will talk about later. What I do care about though are the new Joy-Cons. This is how you would connect them to the console on the original Switch, and this is how you do it on the Switch 2. Magnets, baby! You detach them by pressing a small button on the back, and no, if you try to pull them out of their magnets, they don't fall very easily. I haven't tried with all my force because I don't really want to break the whole thing, but they are quite strong, so they shouldn't really just detach on their own. But magnets are not the only cool thing that these controllers have, because I can say that finally, after a very long time, the Joy-Cons are not complete garbage. I am a hater of the original Switch controller. The buttons are small, the joystick has a lot of issues, the whole thing is just too uncomfortable to fold. The new ones are definitely better. They have bigger bumps on the back that makes them easier to grab, the buttons are a little bit bigger, the joystick also has a bigger surface, all changes that were necessary. And there is no better way to test this than with my favorite, a sound test. I don't know if this makes my point clear, but I basically prefer the new ones. And they get even better because the new ones can even be used as a mouse. Currently, there are not a lot of games that use this functionality other than Welcome Tour and Cyberpunk, as far as I know. But I've also tried this with some unreleased games during the Switch 2 event, like Dragon's Drive and Metroid Prime 4. And it's honestly surprising how well it works. And I say that as a computer guy. I love my mouse, but this thing works way better than I anticipated, even if you want to use it on your leg. Now, am I going to be playing Civilization 7 on the Switch using the mouse controls for 4 hours straight? Probably not. And if I did, I would most likely get some permanent cramp on my hands, because this is not the most comfortable way to hold anything for a long time. I think in the future, I'll be using it during smaller play sessions or in specific situations during a game. For example, when you are fighting a boss in Metroid, since that only takes a couple of minutes, and it's much better for me than using joysticks to aim. I can't do that. I know that some people might look at them and be like, okay, this is just a gimmick, but trust me, they work really well, and I'm super excited to try more stuff on the Switch using these mouse controls. Moving on, another thing that is better are the internals, obviously. Online there are lots of discussions of people comparing the Switch 2 to other consoles. It's like a PS4. No, it's more like an Xbox Series S. In the end, it doesn't really matter. Clearly, the Switch 2 can run games way better than its predecessor, and is able to upscale to even 4K in some games, as long as you connect it to your TV using the new dock. There are also plenty of new titles that run great, and that would have never run well on the first one. Does that now mean that the Switch 2 is the ultimate console that will be able to run all games at 4K 60 FPS now and in the future? Probably not. But the reality is that we went from a pretty limited machine that even when it came out was already struggling to run pretty much anything, to a new portable console that at least can compete in performance to other ones released in the last decade. Everything I've tried so far both look and run amazing. It might not last long if games keep growing in requirements, but looking at the best reviewed titles this year, I don't think there are that many that wouldn't be able to run on the Switch 2, as long as they spend some time making a good port of it. And another perk that we get, because the internals are much better, is that the loading times are super fast. or at least much faster than before. This is a comparison that I made in Breath of the Wild, with the original Switch on the left and the new one on the right. After everything has been loaded, there is a 10-second difference between the two, which means that it is around 60% faster, at least on this specific example. And now I need to fill the silence to give the Switch the time so it can finish. Almost there, come on! Finally. So far, everything is good news when it comes to the hardware, but there is one thing that might be a deal breaker for some of you, and that is the battery life. Nintendo promises between 2 and 6.5 hours of battery life for this thing. Even if you compare it to the original before they did any of the improvements, that's half an hour less. If you take in consideration the latest revisions of the Switch, it's more like 2.5 hours less of battery. Ouch. And my own experience is that this is pretty bad. Yesterday I was playing Mario Kart in bed, and the console went from 90% to 30% in around, 50 minutes or so. Now, this was also with Wi-Fi on, playing online, but still, it's not great. So, to conclude that hardware part, this console is awesome. The new Joy-Cons are a huge improvement on every aspect. I'm really excited about the mouse controls. The screen is big and bright, and everything runs so much smoother than with the Switch. The negative part, though, is the battery life. If you're mostly going to be using this in handheld mode in places where you don't have access to a charger, I would recommend that you buy some kind of power bank or that you wait for a refresher. Or maybe Nintendo will be able to do something software related to improve the battery life, but I wouldn't count on it. And since we are talking about software, let's talk about it, starting with the UI. This is the UI of the original Switch. Very basic, but very clean and classic. Except that I lied, that's the one from the Switch 2. Both are really similar, which on one hand is great if you already have a Switch, since things are going to feel the same. But on the other hand, I'm kind of sad that we're not getting anything new. Do you remember the Wii U menus? Probably not, because nobody bought the Wii U. But there was this Miiverse stuff which looked kind of fun. Sure, it was not the most practical thing in the world, but at least it had some personality. The current Switch 2 menus, they look nice, they look sleek, but they also are kind of, boring and uninspired. But besides this, which seems that I cannot just enjoy normal things that are perfectly fine, there are two things about the UI that I do not like too much. The first thing is that it's kind of annoying having many games installed that you're actively playing and having to go through this horizontal menu in order to find them. Yes, you can always go towards the right, click on the games, and then you see everything, but it's not super fast. And there is always a way to create groups, same as with the Switch, but again, having to go all the way to the right, click a button, and click another one to get to see the group, there has to be some kind of better way to do this. And then the second thing are the themes. For years, people have been asking for themes on the Switch, and it hasn't happened. And it seems that now we are also not getting them. There are some rumors that are saying that maybe there will be themes in the future, but who knows if it will ever happen. I do find it kind of weird that for a console that you're supposed to just take with you when you travel and meet friends with, that they haven't really added a way to just make it a bit more, U? Please, Nintendo, do not make a Switch U. Don't take any ideas from this. But yeah, in the future, maybe we will see themes, maybe not. I'm just a little bit disappointed that the whole UI is very similar to the original one. What I'm not disappointed by, or at least not completely, is the eShop. The eShop of the Switch was an absolute mess. It was extremely laggy and slow, lacking some very basic features for any web shop in the 21st century, and now finally looks like something that we can use. Look at this. I can move around. Nothing takes like 15 seconds to appear on the screen. I can even change tabs without the whole system breaking down. What an amazing technology. But seriously, finally having a usable place where we can buy our games, it is great. There are still things missing, like more filters or a basket functionality, which I'm still amazed that we don't have that in 2025. But for the rest, it's usable, and just because of that, I love it. It arrived 8 years too late, but it's here now. So all of this stuff about UI and eShop is all nice, but you probably are wondering about the games. Because at the end of the day, if you buy the Switch 2, it's because of the games. Or at least I hope so, since you're not going to be able to watch Hulu or YouTube since the apps are still not there. So yeah, this console for now is only about gaming, and that's going to be an interesting discussion. But before we get into that, let's talk about some drama. The drama with the game keycards. So normally, if you buy a Switch game, you will get the card, put it on the Switch, and you start playing. Maybe there will be an update for it, but the game will be at least in the cartridge. And this is changing with the Switch 2. Nintendo has promised that their cards will still have the full games in them, but this can be different for third-party publishers. So as an example, I bought this, Split Fiction, and when you open it, what you encounter is a piece of plastic telling you the code that you have. I already redeemed it, so you cannot do it. And they even have this little thing here showing where the game should be and how times have changed. for the worse. And to be fair, this is not just a Nintendo issue. The whole market has been moving towards digital only. PC gaming has been digital for a very, very long time, and other console manufacturers are basically doing the same thing. But still, this doesn't mean that it doesn't suck, because it does. If you're someone who in 20 years will want to play this game on the Switch 2, there is a chance that it will not work. This also doesn't really help anyone. It's not that people were like, man, I hate when I buy a game and I had a cartridge with the game in it. I really hope that I would have just a code that I have to introduce somewhere and I would have to spend 3 hours downloading it with my really bad internet connection. So this sucks, but this is also the world that we live in, not just in gaming, but in almost anything else. But okay, let's stop delaying stuff. Let's talk about the games. The truth is that this console at launch doesn't really have too many first-party exclusives. We have Mario Kart World, which I'll make a whole video about it once I spend more time with it, but so far I'm loving it. And Tour Guide, which I'll also make a video about it very soon, and yeah, kind of actually angry about it. Other than that, during the first year we will get Kirby Air Riders, Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is coming next month, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, Drag X Drive, and then 2 titles that are also coming on the Switch, so they are Nintendo exclusives, but not Switch 2 exclusives, Pokémon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4. There might be some more stuff coming out, but we don't know about it. So if you don't really like Mario Kart, there's not much reason for you to get the console right now, unless you're interested in some of the other stuff that this console offers. For example, there are lots of older third-party games that were already on other platforms and that now are finally arriving on the Switch 2 on launch day. Cyberpunk 2077, Split Fiction, or Street Fighter 6 are some of them. Also, because the Switch 2 is retro-compatible with the original, you'll still be able to play your Switch games and take advantage of the bigger screen and better Joy-Cons. Besides, some games will get an upgrade edition that will make them run at 60 FPS 4K when docked, or 120 FPS 1080p handheld, making these old games look much better and feel much smoother. I'm currently replaying Breath of the Wild, which I haven't touched in many years, and it is awesome. Quick note though, not all Switch games are gonna be able to play on the Switch 2. I already made a whole video talking about it, I will leave it in the description, but the TLDR is that basically not all third parties are gonna be working. There are not a huge amount of them and Nintendo working to fix them, but check on the website to make sure that your favorite game is not on the list before getting the console, just in case. And if you're not interested in the new games or in the older games, maybe you're interested in the really old games? With the Switch, you were already able to play many games from many of the older Nintendo consoles, up to Nintendo 64. And now with the Switch 2, this library has increased with the GameCube. There are only a couple of titles available so far, but they've already said that more are coming, so if that's your thing, this is awesome news. You do have to be subscribed to the higher online tier if you want to make use of it though. And if none of this has tickled your wallet, then this console is probably not for you, at least for now. But it definitely is for me. Yes, there are things that I don't really like too much, like some UI aspects and a pretty bad battery life. I'm also not happy that Mario World costs $80, and I'm scared that more games will follow that really expensive price. But all of these bad stuff is still not bad enough for me to sour the fact that I'm really enjoying playing with the Switch 2. They've basically improved every aspect of the original, making it the ultimate Nintendo console. I mean, you can play the thousands of Switch games that have been released over the last years, the ones that will be coming out, which are probably not gonna be a small amount, as well as hundreds of classic titles from a lot of the previous generations. It is amazing. But at the same time, part of me kind of misses the old Nintendo portable consoles, the ones that were truly portable, you know? Because people talk about the Switch and also the Switch 2 as portable consoles, and I mean, technically, yeah, they are. You can put them in a case and then maybe put it in a backpack and that should work, but I miss the fact that you could just take this anywhere without having to plan anything or worry about space at all. And I get it though, at the end of the day, the Switch 2 is some kind of culmination of everything that Nintendo has been working on since many decades, and the company now doesn't have to worry about the DS side and the home console side. They can just do everything together, but some part of me still thinks, what would Nintendo do nowadays if they had to do something like this DS? But still, what we got is the Switch 2. The Switch 2 is awesome, and I'm super excited about the future. And if you are also excited about it, make sure to subscribe. I will be making reviews, I will be making news contents, I will be making a lot of stuff about the Switch 2. So if you like that, then join me.